that one. From the Mariners supporters, blows his whistle. George Moncur steps up and scores. Bottom corner of the net. The goalkeeper was very close, and it's John. He lets in a low cross, and that's been turned in. And Leyton Orient are back on level terms. He'll come to James. He shoots. Oh, and a goal from Tom James. That was a volley, and that was. It's a low cross. It's an inviting cross, and it's been turned in by Theo Archibald, and he celebrates in front of the travelling faithful.
Good afternoon and welcome to Orient Live here in the E10 studio, and of course happy Easter, and of course Leyton Orient are also rising up the football leagues, and we've got another great fixture this afternoon as the O's are facing Harrogate Town, and I'm delighted to be joined by journalist Brendan Pitcher and Orient player Joe Widdowson. And boys, it feels great to be here. It's a bit rainier and greyer than Friday, but hopefully a chance to pick up another 3 points.
Done the hard job with the 2 victories in the last 2 games, and now I think Richie spoke about in his pre-match before Salford that they needed a little bit of a jolt, those big games against Carlisle and Salford, and now on paper you've got an easier game against Harrogate, and it's just about making sure that complacency doesn't set in and we can carry on and pick up another 3 points today.
It's one of my favourite weekends in the football calendar, Easter weekend. It's 2 games in quick succession, but a good opportunity to pick up hopefully 6 points.
Yeah, definitely, and I think, you know, having had such a good result and good performance on the Friday as well, you know, the boys will be bouncing into today. Really looking forward to it. Back at home against, you know, a Harrogate team that, you know, going by their league position and their form, you know, you'd really sort of fancy our chances to turn them over today and pick up another 3 points.
There are a couple of changes from Friday's blistering performance away at Salford, and I think some deserved players are getting some rest in their legs. So let's take a look at how the O's are lining up this afternoon. So starting at the back as always, in goal is the safe hands, number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. There's a change to the backline as Ed Turns is injured, and number 33, James McCart comes in, and he's partnering in number 19, Omar Beckles, with 32, Rob Hunt, and 24, Jaden Sweeney in the fullback positions. Another change in the midfield as well is number 12, Jordan Brown replaces the captain, Darren Pratley, and he's partnering number 15, Idris El Mazouni. And it's an unchanged attack in front four with number 10, Ruel Sotiriou leading the line, and behind him number 7, Paul Smith, 14, George Moncur, and 34, Kieran Sadlier. And on the bench for the O's is Sam Sargent, Tom James, Adam Thompson, Craig Clay, Darren Pratley, Charlie Coleman returns from suspension, and Stephen Duke McKenna. So, I mean, let's start with the changes, and obviously it's never nice to have to make a change to a back four that's keeping clean sheets, but a good chance for McCart to come in today and show everyone what he's about.
Yeah, big day for Jamie McCart, because I'm sure he'd be the first one to admit that his Orient career quite hasn't got started yet. I think he's had a couple of shaky performances, but he's come into this club with a lot of pedigree. He's played SPL football last season, he played a number of games for St Johnstone, he played a number of games in the Championship before joining us. So he's clearly got pedigree, he's clearly got quality. It's just about him showing it now, because Ed Turns has been so solid, and he will be a miss today, but hopefully not too much of a miss, and McCart can come in and do a job.
We've seen a number of times this season, Joe, whether it was Dan Happy getting injured, Omar suspended, Tom James injured, Rob Hunt getting injured, we've dealt with it all the time, and this team are coached well, and defensively they know their jobs, and no matter who slides in, you still expect them to perform.
Yeah, 100%, and I think, you know, like you said, they're obviously coached really well. You know, the coaching staff have done a lot of work with the back four, but not just the back four, but like the midfield, as all 3 units, the attacking midfield and defensive unit. They defend really well as a team, you know, starting right from the front, whoever's leading the line, whether it's, you know, Kelman, Drinnan, whoever it is, you know, the whole team defends really well, which helps the back four and eases the pressure on them. But like you said, you know, all credit to the defenders, because whoever's been playing this season has stepped in, you know, the likes of, you know, whether it's Sween's coming into the team, you know, Jordan Brown slotting in at right back, centre half, you know, Adam Thompson's come in, and everyone's kind of really stepped up to the mark when given their opportunity. So all credit to those defenders for, you know, for making it so competitive. And, you know, you've seen today, you know, like the likes of Tom James, you know, not in the team recently, because people coming in and doing their jobs and performing really well.
And they really perform well on Friday as well, the defence. We'll talk about the attack and Wellens' ball shortly, but we've got to give some praise. I don't think we probably gave them enough credit on Friday at the time, but watching back the highlights, Lawrence Vigouroux, Rob Hunt and Jaden Sweeney in particular, they were immense.
Yeah, like we said, we'll talk about the front four in a minute, and they were brilliant. But if you're giving a man the match, I think we both gave it on the stream to Rob Hunt. He was fantastic in there. He had his best game in the orange shirt, cut out everything at the back post, was so aware, and that was a sign of a well-drilled team. I think we could go through everyone. Jaden Sweeney, again, just looks so composed. He's made that left-back spot his own. Brilliant in there. And Lawrence Vigouroux, I think, probably went under the radar a little bit when we were going through the game on Friday, but two absolutely wonderful saves. One was top draw and was quite obvious, but the second one, I think we didn't quite realise that he made a save until you watched the highlights back. To get a touch on that like he did was a sign of a top keeper, and we'd be a lot poorer without him this season.
It was an incredible save, and I think he's now on 22 clean sheets, hurtling towards a club record. I'm sure he's just been immense, Lawrence. But as Richie says, as I think even Lawrence says, and you mentioned earlier, that the clean sheets go to the whole team, the whole striker to the defenders.
Yeah, of course. It is definitely a team effort. I know what Loz is like. He counts every clean sheet, and he doesn't let that slide. But I just think on Loz, sometimes we do often take him for granted a little bit because he is ever present, never misses a game, never misses a training session, let alone a game. He's so consistent, and the fact that the defence have been performing so well would mean that he hasn't really had to make sort of too many what you call like match-winning saves. But the other day when called upon, he's really kind of pulled two worldies out the bag, and just ensured another clean sheet and a really good 3 points.
And how, both physically and maybe mentally, how is it for a player going through what we did on Friday and performing so well at that level, and we came under a lot of pressure in the second half, to then have to turn around in a couple of days and get back out on the pitch on a Monday? It must be quite tough.
I don't think it'll be tough for the boys today because they know what's at stake. They know what's on the line, and they'll just be incredibly focused. I think remember these sort of fixtures when playing. If you have a good result on that Friday, you bounce into Monday. You can't wait for Monday to come around. You get in, you do your recovery. You rest and you recuperate, and then you're just ready to go again. And you want the games to keep coming. When you're in the form that the boys are in. You don't feel tired. There's so much at stake, and you just want to keep that momentum, really.
I think it was Harrogate on the Easter Monday when we when you won the league back in 2019. So maybe that's an omen. Looking at the second change then, and it's Jordan Brown coming in, and we say about players stepping up and when called upon they perform, and Jordan Brown does that and more.
Yeah, I thought he was a little bit unlucky not to make the starting 11 against Salford. I think he had an excellent second half performance when he came on at half time against Carlisle, and then Darren Pratley goes and puts in an excellent performance against Salford. And I think in Richie's interview pre-match he alludes to the fact that I think it was always going to be a change. It was horses for courses almost. I think they knew Pratley could probably only play one game over Easter, and you want him in there against Salford, probably the tougher game on paper where you need the more kind of battle-hardened player. But this is a great opportunity for Jordan Brown because, like we said, he never lets us down. He's so composed in there, and with him and El Mazouni in there, so much quality on the ball as well as their energy and as well as their ability to win the ball back.
You do lose a bit of experience though when you take Darren Pratley out. Your side has played hundreds of league games. It's two young midfielders in Jordan Brown and Idris El Mazouni, but as Brendan says, they are so quality. They just might need to battle a little bit today against some experienced players in the Harrogate side. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously Idris has been a mainstay, and his standard have been exceptional. He's been really consistent with his performances. Interesting for Jordan Brown today. I was just thinking there, we haven't actually seen him play midfield too often recently. Before his injury, he was playing at fullback a little bit and then at centre half. So, but he is, a jack of all trades. He does a really good, sort of job wherever he seems to play. So, it'd be good to see him back in there today, and hopefully he can get more minutes and build up his fitness as he recovers from his comeback from his injury.
And they'll be protecting the back four maybe, and they'll be letting the four in front of them go and do their thing. And if you look at that first half, especially at Salford on Friday, and we'll take a look at some of the passages of play. There's no surprise that front four is unchanged because they were electric. Yeah, no, they were really on song the other day at Salford. I think the likes of Moncur, Ruel, Sotiriou, really bright, really sharp. Caused all sorts of problems. Really fluid with their passing and interchanging. Paul Smith here running onto a through ball. Just a really good all-round attacking display. Caused so many problems for Salford, especially in that first half. Probably should have had the game more out of sight than it was, Brendan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think today is a big show of faith in Richie and Sotiriou, because I think he's been pretty steadfast in throughout the season, saying he's not a number 9. I don't see him as a striker. I prefer obviously Kelman and Drinan. Kelman's back today from suspension, but he's on the bench because Raul played brilliantly on Friday and leading the line, running the channels, doing all the dirty work that Richie's asked him to do. And I think that's where that's a big show of faith. And then we're going to see this goal here. This is, for me, we've scored some brilliant individual goals this season, but this is far and away the team goal of the season for me. It's just brilliant, slick football and finished off by George Moncur, who I think has really found his form and now is playing his best football in an Orient shirt.
I mean, that goal, we could loop it again and again and again. That looks like one just straight off the training pitch.
Yeah, I just think like if you look at the runs that everyone's making, it's just so cohesive. It's so really fluid. People know where the ball's going to go. People they're aware of the space to run into, and it just if Barcelona had scored that goal, we'd all be waxing lyrical about it. So yeah, just really nice passing football, and this is the type of football that I think like Richie really wants to see his teams playing.
We could genuinely watch it on a loop, and as you say, you think of Tom James's volleys and Paul Smith's acrobatic efforts, but this is pure football.
This is like Joe says, I think at times we've had to be a little bit more battle hardened this season, try and dig in a little bit, play a little bit more direct than Richie would have hoped. But I think if Richie was going to talk about what kind of goal he wants his team to score, I think it would be a goal like that where they move through the thirds so well, everyone looks so in sync, and that's a pattern of play that I'm sure has been worked on through the training ground throughout the whole season.
We've just got to talk a little bit more about Sotiriou as well, because as Brendan says, Richie's quite adamant that he's a wide man, but he's getting his chance through the middle, and I think it's 6 goal involvements in his last 8 outings, which is good returns, and he's a player that I'm sure he will finish the chances that he gets.
Yeah, he's in one of his purple patches of form that we know he likes to have. But I think it's interesting. Richie's clearly he really rates him. He's got a lot of confidence in him. He's played him out wide. He's played him in that number 10 role. Now he's playing him down the middle. So it's interesting that he sees him as capable of doing all these different roles. I think credit to Ruel as well for. Certainly when I played with him, he was a centre forward. I didn't really see him as too much of a, maybe possibly in a front three, out wide either side. But I definitely felt his most effective position was straight down the middle, leading the line. But credit to him, he's learnt different roles. He's adapted and he's managed to add different strings to his bow. But he is a player that we know his finishing is one of his strengths. He can. Sort of player that he can score goals out of the blue. Unexpected chances, and I'm sure. For Ruel, he'll be wanting to add more goals, to his game, as he has done in recent weeks. This is another opportunity for him today.
And what we've got to just give some credit to is not the goal involvements, but the effort he's been putting in. And I think he played 10 minutes at right back against Carlisle when we were down to 10 men. He was dead on his feet on Friday. He's really looks like he's giving everything for the cause. Yeah,
he's putting it in out there. I think you mentioned the Carlisle performance when his back's to the wall, 10 men. You need the players to dig in, and you don't necessarily think that's going to be Sotiriou, but he was brilliant in that last 10 minutes. He was putting himself about, doing all the right things, showing his growing experience that he's getting now, and then obviously leading the line against Salford, a real tough test for him, given the manager has been almost so open about the fact that he doesn't quite see the qualities in him to do that. And he's proving him wrong at the minute because he was brilliant on Friday.
He certainly is. Well, don't forget, as it's Easter Monday, this game is available to stream for UK and international fans. So head over to the website that is on screen, hopefully any second now, and you can pick up your match pass to watch along with Dave Victor and Matt Hiscock on Orient Live. But now let's hear from the pre-match thoughts of the gaffer, Richie Wellens.
Gaffer, back in E10 today, Harrogate Town at home, and the chance to follow on from Friday's really good result.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult game now. I think Harrogate are in a position, obviously, to fighting for their lives. They've only lost 2 out of the last 10. So we need to make sure that complacency isn't a factor today. We had 2 great wins against team in and around the top 6, so we need to continue it today.
Obviously, we've seen this season, towards the kind of business end of the season, the teams down the bottom are continuing to get good results, and Harrogate will be buoyed by a late couple of goals last time out.
I just think you have to look at the history of the table. The bottom teams get relegated in a certain amount of points, and he was way below that. So he started to catch up. Obviously, the sense of the fighting for their lives and the Football League status. So I think that Hartlepool, Rochdale have had a few good wins. Gillingham have obviously had a really good run. Crawley now have started to win a few games. So we know and we should learn the lesson from the Colchester game where it looked like we was out of sight and they kept fighting till the end. So we need to be on our toes today.
A couple of changes. How much of them are enforced?
Well, Ed's out injured. He's been gradually getting a little bit worse, and obviously the close proximity of the games means that we have to take him out and rest him. And Prats has obviously run himself into the ground, so we don't feel we need to risk it with Jordan Brown being a really good deputy for him. So I think one's definitely enforced, and one where we're thinking about it. We planned it before that Prats would be really good away at Salford, and this we think we're going to have a little bit more possession today. So Brownie would suit that. So I'll think about maybe one more, but I think the players have earned the right to stay in.
Obviously great scenes on Friday after the win at Salford, and no doubt a lot of excitement in the dressing room. How much about today is kind of coming back in, being professional and make sure we get the job done and not too carried away?
I think you've answered the question yourself about being professional. The Manchester weather was beautiful. The East London weather is not so beautiful, but be professional. Make sure we start the game right. Again, it should be a full house. I don't think Harrogate will have a massive following, so we need that to influence. We need energy from the crowd. Especially with two games so close together, this being the second one. So yeah, let's use the energy from the crowd, let's start well, give them something to shout about, and force it home.
Top stuff there from Richie, and of course don't forget we'll hopefully be joining him live post-match as well, so make sure you hang around for that one at the end. And it's an interesting question about the professionalism and maybe keeping the heads, because the scenes after the game on Friday were so high, and it did feel like we were edging to the promised land or where we want to be. How hard is it to make sure that complacency doesn't creep in and you're putting in the same level of performance, whether it's Salford or Harrogate down the bottom of the table?
I think with this team, it's one thing that we've seen, that they've shown throughout the season that, they get the job done. They are professional. They do things right. They don't seem to get too carried away. If they have a disappointing result or performance, they always respond. In the next game, and so that's become a trademark of this team. So I don't think it'll be any different today. Like I keep saying, the boys are edging so close to what they want to achieve this season, and from the coaching staff to the senior players and voices in the squad, it'll be being drummed into everyone. Look, boys, it's just another game. Keep doing what we have been doing. Maintain our standards. As Richie always says, do the basics. Track runners, organise. Make sure the boys are switched on from set pieces and so on. Do that, and they have more than enough quality to go and win the game today.
And it is just another game, but it will probably be a fairly different one from Friday. Salford were a footballing side. Richie described them as an academy side almost, but these guys will be scrapping. If you look back to the recent home game here against relegation contenders, I won't even mention the team, don't want to jinx anything, but you see how teams fight for their life when it gets to this stage of the season, and Harrogate will probably try and make it a bit hard and scrappy for us.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Harrogate kind of play today, because I think if you associate throughout their time in League Two, or even when we played them back in Joe's day in the National League, they were a footballing side first. They were quite open. It would be they make it a basketball match at times, and we've had some great games with them where we've normally had quite a good record. But as you say, they're fighting for their lives at the minute. They're deep in a relegation battle, and I think it might be a case of going away to the league leaders. In the state they're in, they might just try and go back to the wall and try and defend. So I'm interested to see how Simon Weaver sets his team up today.
Well, we'll see shortly when the game kicks off how they'll play, but let's take a look at how they line up. And as Brendan says, Simon Weaver is in a relegation battle, but they've only lost 2 of their last 11 fixtures, so I'm sure it will be no walk in the park. But there is the Harrogate side with number 1, Mark Oxley in goal, the captain number 4, Josh Falkingham, number 7, George Thompson, number 10, Kazim Olegby, number 14, Toby Sims, 15, Anthony O'Connor, number 16, Alex Patterson, 17, Levi Sutton, number 29, Luke Armstrong, 33, Matty Folds, and 34, Tom Eastman. And on the bench is Jameson, Mattock, Burrell, Angus, Follerin, Muldoon, and Daly. So, as we said, their last 10, 11 games, there's been a lot of draws against some good sides, but they're picking up points here and there. It's not just going to be a walk in the park.
Yeah, they're not a terrible side. I think given their record in the last couple of years in League Two, you'd have expected them to kick on and be safe by this time of year. Normally, it's a case of they're mid-table when they're in League Two. That they're normally this time of year, they're almost on the beach and they know they can't go up and they can't go down. But this year, maybe because of what Richie alluded to with the strength of kind of that relegation battle where there's not as many basket case teams that are getting automatically relegated because they're in such trouble, you've got a strong bottom of League Two this year, and Harrogate have been sucked in. So yeah. tough game for us still, but one that we should win, really.
What do you remember from your days of playing Harrogate? It does feel like we've played them most seasons in recent years, and as Brendan said earlier, we do seem to have good games with them, and more often than not pick up 3 points.
Yeah, always a really difficult, plucky, tough opposition. Really well organised, very energetic. A lot of those players there I recognise from playing against them a number of years ago. So the manager's been there a long time. A lot of players have been there a long time with him. So he certainly had his imprint on the squad and the way they play. Drums in how he wants them to go about their football, really well. And I think, to be honest, their team I think's really overachieved and kind of punched above their weight. But now established in the league, and I think they've got more than enough to stay up. Probably had a bit of a disappointing season, but I don't think it will be a walk in the park by any means today.
Josh Falkingham's a tidy little midfielder that sticks in my mind from whenever we've played him. He's one that battle with Jordan Brown and Idris El Mazouni might be an interesting one.
Yeah, really small in stature, but very competitive, very vocal, loves the challenge, loves getting stuck in. So, I'm sure we want to make it a bit of a scrap in there, with the weather conditions and the surface. I'm sure there'll be plenty of tackles flying in. So I think it'll be a tough contest. I'm sure that they'll, the position they're in, and the position that Orient are in, they won't come, all out. I suspect they might, try and camp in a little bit, get behind the ball and try and spring on the counter, like a lot of teams do try and do here. So, I think it'll be a tough test. They got 1 or 2 threats in their team, and a little bit of quality, so it'll be difficult.
Who's the danger man for you then, Brendan? Who do the Orient defenders need to be aware of?
Yeah, I think it's Luke Armstrong. I think if you cast your mind back to the start of last season, he tore us apart at Brisbane Road. I think they won 2-0 that day, and he scored twice. And I think he's hit a little bit of form now, as we're seeing on the screen. I think he scored a few goals recently, and he seems to be a striker that, despite playing for an underperforming team, he's still full of confidence. 4 in his last 7 shows that, and I think he's one of those kind of instinctive finishers. And like Joe says, I think they're going to have enough quality probably to stay up, and it's probably going to be down to the fact they have an informed goal scorer that, like you're seeing here, he can just get a shot away in an instant and find the back of the net, which is rare for what you'd imagine a team to have at the bottom end of the table.
And what are you getting from this real Joe? Well, I mean, he looks tidy. Might be a tough day for a couple of the Orient defenders.
Yeah, he's certainly lively. Looks like he likes to play on the shoulder. Plenty of energy, likes making runs in behind, and really comes alive in the opposition's penalty area. Some real variety of goals and finishes there, but he certainly looks like a real goal threat, and he'll be a handful today for sure.
It's the first time with Omar Beckles and Jen McCart starting together. It's a new partnership, and do you think maybe he'll be keeping an eye on them and maybe trying to ask a few questions of them early doors?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, fortunately for McCart, Omar's been fantastic all season. So he's coming in alongside a real rock and a real leader with Omar, and obviously Loz behind him as well. Those two have played pretty much all season apart from Omar's suspension. So I think that'll be good for McCart. He's also coming in alongside Sweens, whose form has been really, really good, and is, he's improved with every game he's played recently. So it's a nice settled back four, I think, for McCart to come into. Playing at home as well, you'd like to think they have more of the ball and doing more attacking than defending. But certainly by the look of those clips there, he'll certainly have to be on his toes and make sure he's switched on at all times with Armstrong around.
Let's look at the other end of the pitch for Harrogate then, because hopefully, knowing the attackers we've got in our ranks, their defence will be there for the taking. Yeah,
they're a little bit leaky, and I think Simon Weaver this season has tried to address the fact, like I was saying before, about the fact that they're very good going forward. They've all been a footballing side, but at times during their time in the Football League, they've been quite kind of leaky, conceded a lot of goals, and this season he's tried to readdress that balance. They signed a couple of defenders in January to try and improve things, and it hasn't really. If anything, it's affected them going forward, and they're not quite as fluid as they were anymore. So interesting to see that balance and see whether they, like we said, whether they do go back to the wall, whether they do try and just defend first and foremost, or whether they try and think it's a free hit away at the league leaders when we're in a relegation battle. No one expects us to get anything. There's not much pressure on them. See what they can do.
Well, kickoff is very nearly upon us. So, of course, don't forget, if you watch along live on our YouTube stream, then to head over to the Orient website to pick up your streaming pass to watch along with us here on Orient Live. But before we head over to our matchroom team, let's remind ourselves of how the O's are lining up this afternoon. So in goal for Leyton Orient, it's the safe pair of hands, number 22, Lawrence Vigouroux. One change to the back four, with Ed Turns dropping out with an injury. He's replaced by number 33, Jamie McCart. We have number 24, Jaden Sweeney, 19, Omar Beckles, and 32, Rob Hunt. And then in the midfield, another change with number 12, Jordan Brown, replacing Darren Prattley. He's partnering number 15, Idris El Mazouni. And then it's an unchanged attacking front four, with number 7, Paul Smith, 14, George Moncur, 34, Kieran Sadlier, and Ruel Sotiriou is leading the line. And on the bench for the O's is Sam Sargent, Tom James, Adam Thompson, Craig Clay, Darren Prattley, Charlie Kelman, and Stephen Duke McKenna. So with all things considered then, Brendan, and everything we've discussed, are you expecting a goal fest today?
I hope so. I mean, I'd take a scrappy 1-0 if it gets us 3 points closer to where we want to be, but I think it could be an open game. It could be a game where an early goal could be key, because Harrogate, their confidence was probably fragile, and if it's the fact that we get an early goal and their game plan goes out the window, we could see a day where hopefully we open up and score quite a few.
And what a sight that is, Joey. I mean, going into the run-in with a game in hand, being 10 points clear, the confidence must be through the roof.
Yeah, look at that. I'm sure, every Orient fan, if you'd have shown them the league table at the start of the season, at this stage of the season, they would have snapped your hands off. It's a great position to be in. You look at the 5 defeats all season, incredible. The form here has been pretty imperious as well all season long. So, I'm expecting another comfortable victory today, to be honest.
Well, confidence in the studio, and hopefully the boys on the pitch will be just as confident in their abilities to bring home all 3 points. But now it is time to hand over to our match crunch team of Dave Victor and Matt Hiscock.
And good afternoon, welcome to Brisbane Road, where there is an air of expectation. After 2 huge victories, Richie Wellens' men now 10 points clear at the top. They can't afford to take anything for granted. Harrogate fighting for their league lives, 1 defeat in 7, and they are equalised